Hey everyone, Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation back with another athlete interview. Today I'm joined by Gabe Peterson, a longtime member of the team, de facto leader, and ironically still located in the mountains, even though he's just on Zoom next to me right now. Gabe, how you doing?
Living the dream. How about you, Patrick?
I'm doing really well. I barely recognize you without your living the dream aviators from living the dream floaty inside of a pool.
Yeah, I need that. I have to wear. I'm getting old, so I have to wear glasses now when I'm in front of a screen. So I don't always wear the aviators.
I see. Not only do you enjoy the epic good looks, but also epic adventures. So, folks, you're wondering why Gabe is here today for many reasons, not just being a really great human being and really thoughtful in terms of how he approaches endurance and sharing that out. He's done a lot of cool stuff as well. So, he's 49 years old, which is hard to believe because he looks not a year older, 19. San Diego, California. So, you already hate him. There you go. Started off with triathlon and transitioned into ultra running. When I say transition, it's like just took a left and then just took off like a rocket ship. So you've done over 30 ultra marathons, 100 plus races, including things like Leadville, Wasatch, and the Bear, which sounds like probably like some New England IPA brews, but are legit hardcore racing. Has done the Moab 240 endurance run. Uh, you got 20th place. Look at these things. This is insane. FKT on the John Muir Trail via Cottonwood Pass, 5 days. That's ridiculous. You set the course record for the San Diego 200 in 2022. Oh my God, I can't even go on. And I think to me, this the most recent one is one of the more powerful ones that people I think get. So you qualified for Boston at the Mount Charleston Marathon, and later that same month you took third in your age group at the Mountain Trail Canyons 100. Good God, you
Yeah, I
just
was
love to run.
kind of. Yeah, I like to run. Yeah, try to go with the whole Sage Kennedy mantra of any surface, anywhere, anytime. Although trails or
Okay.
whatever I prefer, but I thought that would be a fun challenge to see if I could qualify for Boston and then run a 100-mile race in the same month.
Wow.
It's usually people are like, "Oh, you're either a road runner or you're a trail runner. You can't do both," and
I
you
see.
can't, or you can't do both well. So
Uh, How
worked out okay.
so tell us for reals, if we had to go right now, turn off your fake Zoom background, how many pairs of shoes do you actually own for running?
Yeah, a lot. My wife is always complaining about that. So
Oh,
I I think I buy a new pair of shoes maybe every 3 to 4 weeks. And
that's
there's just
about
a
right.
pile of shoes in the garage, and then they get donated.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh my god. Alright,
that's
so
one of the things I've learned not to go cheap on is you
yeah.
don't ride your bike with a bald tire. Don't run with shoes where the foam is all compressed and everything. Then
Oh my
you
god.
like plantar fasciitis, which I've had. After that, I learned
Mhm.
like spend the money to preserve your.
Yeah. 100% worthwhile investment. How do you I just did that stupid Ultramate thing, which I had to eject out of this past weekend, and I was like, "Let me see what" of course, after starting, I was like, "What did I do last year?" Which is a really bad idea. And I looked at last year and I literally had been like, oh, thank goodness. The new shoes I ordered arrived today. And I was like, oh, I didn't order the new shoes this time around. My shoes have got like 800 miles on them. I'm like, I'm screwed. I can't get new shoes in time for this stupid running thing. How do you manage that? Is it like just you just know, hey, it's the third Thursday, I just buy new shoes day, or what do you do?
I always have I keep like a safety stock of shoes. Like I always have a box. I actually have a, in our storage room. Uh,
Okay.
I have stacks of shoes, especially if models change. If there's a model
Oh,
I really like the Hoka Speedgoat 4 is an amazing mountain shoe, and then
mhm.
at the 5 they changed it,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't work for me.
Okay.
At the end of the run, when they were on sale for like $100, I bought like
Mhm.
all the pairs they had at Running Warehouse, and I just have a
Okay.
stack of these. Now I just sit they're eventually gonna run out, so I save those for important mountain races.
Nice. I could just see it now. Armageddon hits, right? And you're like, family to the bunker. And they go, oh, thank goodness. Like all these boxes. Dad's taking care of us. You need to turn on the light and it's all running shoes.
Is was set we have to run through the apocalypse.
That's right. I love it. Oh, that's fantastic. Awesome. Okay. You've done a ton of ultra things across the board. For the folks at home who are ultra curious or just getting into it, what is it that sets, what initially brought you to ultra running? And then what do you tell people now? Like now being a veteran in the space and you get it. I'd be curious to know what was your I wonder what sort of interests you now and then what you would tell someone who would start today.
Yeah, like my gateway into ultras was part of it was when we moved to Utah in
Mhm.
2014. lots of epic mountains there, and I was pretty
Mhm.
triathlon training. And
Okay.
then, I was out there on the time trial bike, right in the arrow position through the flat valley. And I looked up at those mountains and I was like, man, I should go up in those mountains through traffic on my time trial bike. So bought a mountain bike, started doing more trail running.
Okay.
And then on the way to with the half Ironman in Boulder, it's a long
Mhm.
drive from Salt Lake City to Boulder. I listened
Mhm.
to the book Born to Run. I was like, oh, that sounds
Mm.
like fun. I should sign up for an ultra.
Okay.
Uh, so I guess I was vaguely aware there was such a thing as ultra races. So I
Mhm.
discovered ultrasignup.com,
Yeah.
found a race in Salt Lake City, this race called Antelope Island. Antelope Island is this island out in the middle of the Salt Lake. So it was basically a
Um,
50K loop around this island.
cool.
And I'd done a bunch of road marathons, and road marathons usually ended with me getting to the finish and going, I will never do that again. That was a horrible idea. And then
Yeah.
the memory fades, and 2 years later, you sign up for a road marathon. I got to the finish, and I was like, "Wow, that was a lot of fun. I want to keep exploring." I probably, for me, my biggest piece of advice for people getting into it is enjoy the journey. So that was 2015. I did that, and it was cool because ultras were it was unexplored. There was like no
Mhm.
endurance nation for ultras. There weren't even
Yeah.
books on how to train. The few books that were out there on how to train basically just said, "Go run a lot," which actually turns out to pretty much be right.
Okay.
For the first few years, is just run very gradually building up volume. But I'd say enjoy the journey, climb the ladder. So for me, it was it started out with a 50K in 2015. The
Mhm.
next year, I did a 50 miler, and then the next year, I did 100, then did another 100 the following year, and then I had discovered there was such thing as a 200-mile race, which initially sounded like a really horrible idea. But wow, maybe I'll sign up for that. And
Okay.
I think I signed up for it on January 1st on New Year's Day. I was probably still a little bit drunk, and I was like, I'm going to sign up for Moab 240. I've
Mhm.
got like 10 months to figure out how to get ready for that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I say that because right now I see a lot of runners like jump straight into a 200. You go on the entrance list on Ultra Sign Up for a race
Okay.
like Moab, and you'll find a large number of the field have no other race results. Like they've never run another ultra,
Wow.
and they're just going straight for a 200. It should be a multi-year journey. It should be at least a 3-year journey to get to a 200.
Mhm.
So that'd be my advice: is take your time and enjoy the journey, because you could probably finish at 200, go and couch to 200, but a 200 is already super hard. I gotta imagine
Mhm.
that pure misery.
Yeah. To your point, like, I feel so there's part of what you really embody is this sort of love for your craft, right? Not just the activity. Non-running Gabe is less happy than running Gabe, so Gabe will run more. But I get the sense that you like to create this adventure, you like to plan, you like to go through that process, put it together. It's like a project, but for fitness and for adventure, and in your case, also fundraising for a good cause. To me, I think that incremental steps approach really does make sense, right? Because you get to start small, right? Before I decide I'm going to build a house, I'm going to try and build a bookshelf, right? I'm going to just start. What do what tools do I need? Do I know how to use them? How does that improve? Like that process, I think is really important. And you were able to walk that process. To your point, I feel like a lot of endurance athletes now are just like, oh, the new shiny object is just doing ultras, but you're not getting there the same way. Part of it is the getting there, I think, for that piece that's so important. I don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah, I just feel like we're missing those steps. So I love the idea of the progression. When you said you finished the run and you enjoyed it, like what does you talked about the marathon. So for me, marathon is like 20 miles of hope, 6 miles of reality, where you're like those last 6 miles are brutal and your legs are on fire and you can't wait for that finish line, etc. What makes an ultra run when you're in it and experiencing it? How is that different if you could contrast that? You just did Mount Charleston in this one. So what's it like? Is it just like 3D because you're in nature or it's just a different style of running? What does that look like?
yeah. I think what I love about trail running is it forces you to be present. Your
Mhm,
whole
mhm,
world is what you can see ahead of you. There's a rock up there that I'm going to jump over, and I got to go around that log. With road running, I like that too, but it's easy to just go into your
mhm.
head.
Right.
You don't have to watch where your feet are going.
Yeah.
But if you're really uncoordinated, you're probably not going to trip. You're more focused on I have to hit this pace. I'm looking at
Okay.
my heart rate. I'm looking at all those metrics. In an ultra, I don't look at pace usually at all, unless
Mhm.
it's a shorter distance, like a
Okay.
50K where I have some time goal, but otherwise, I just treat it like it's an output. Like whatever that
Right.
pace is, it's like saying I want to have a target speed on the bike, but there's a headwind. Like you can't hit your target speed, you can just hit your target power. I think that's what I enjoy. Like a marathon is fun. It was fun. Marathons used to seem so long, and when I did Mount Charleston, I was like, oh, it's like 9 in the morning and I'm done. That was so short. It started to
Right.
hurt. I'm like, "Oh, it only is gonna suck for an hour, so that's not bad." Usually it's like sucks for a day.
Right. Oh
So
my god.
it really changes your perspective.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I was actually just talking with Dennis Cruff, who's on the team. He's doing some rehab right now, coming back from some surgery, and he was talking about how because he just cannot do certain things now, he has to do other things, and it's really opened his eyes to what the possibilities are. In your case with the ultra running side, I see that as, hey, there's a whole nother world to your point of being on a road. It's looking to the right and being like, there's a mountain right there with nobody on it, but trees and elk. Why am I sitting in this traffic jam right now trying not to die? Is really encouraging people to get out. So we have Rob Peters this year who did his Ironman in
Yep.
Texas, and then he's going to transition to doing an ultra later in the year. Like how, what advice would you give someone who was another sport athlete in the endurance space who's ultra curious? What does that look like for them in terms of, hey, what's the minimum gear you need or minimal time to make the transition? Assuming, I'm just going to put it out there, that we're signing up for something reasonable, like a 50K or maybe a 50 miler, but the ceiling stops there. Don't be dumb.
Okay, 50K or 50 miler, if you're going from triathlon, that's probably
Hmm.
gonna be a pretty easy transition, especially the 50K. It's just
Okay.
it's just a marathon with another 5 miles of suffering.
Mhm.
50 miler and beyond, it starts to shift where
Okay.
you probably will have to change your approach. The biggest thing I say for people who want to go probably to 50 and beyond is you have to run a lot. And you have to build that
Okay.
running volume up slowly. Yeah, I think the bike is great for like helping you build that endurance base. But for ultras where you're going to run over uneven surface, you're going to run a lot of different paces, you're going to hike up the mountains, and then you're going to bomb down the mountains. There's a lot of different modalities you have to master. Um,
Mm,
so I know when I transitioned from mostly roads, the hard thing I had to let go of was pace, like I was talking about earlier. So I go out
mm,
and do a trail marathon, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm only running a 10-minute mile. This is so slow. I should be running faster, but
right.
but I'm running up the side of a mountain. So at some point, I just said the pace
Right.
doesn't matter. It's not like at that point I could go, oh, I should go
Mhm,
faster running up the
mhm,
side
mhm.
of this mountain. So yeah, I probably just say focus more on RPE than pace.
Okay.
I think if you haven't calibrated your RPE meter, because it's easier in roads to get very used to the watch, like just running by your
Right.
watch, use
Mhm.
heart rate. And one of the things I did for the first couple of years was the Maffetone approach, the Phil
Okay.
Maffetone approach, famous in triathlon for training some of the big triathletes, like blank out his name, the one who won Kona like 6 times, something Allen.
Yeah, that guy, Mark Allen, yeah.
Mark Allen, there you go. Yeah, so my triathlon kung fu has gotten pretty weak.
It's
The
alright.
whole thing was you train at a very easy heart rate, a lot easier than most road athletes are training. At
Mm,
first it sucks because it's I can't even run at this heart rate. It's just so low. But eventually you can run, and then eventually you can run really fast. Like that
mhm,
marathon I did would if I did this 5 zone model, my heart rate stayed
mhm.
basically at like the low end of zone 2 to do a BQ marathon. And it took
Right.
years to do that. So that's if your goal is you want to have a long career in ultras. If you just want to go do sideways,
Mm,
go do a 50K to check the box. Usually something like triathlon or cycling, you're going to have the endurance. You just have to focus on the specificity. So 50K, I would say plan like 3 months, 3 to 4 months, where if you haven't been trail running, start rotating trail running in. Kind of the same idea of
mhm,
you haven't been trail running, don't like all of a sudden I'm gonna go trail run every day.
mm,
Work a lot of the
right.
like stabilizer muscles and things that you don't have to work as much on the road and start with like 1 or 2 trail runs, a couple more, and then eventually most of your runs are trail runs. But I think for 50K it's pretty approachable distance.
Yeah. I think to your point, I think it's only 5 more miles, but if you thought the last 6 miles of a marathon were hard, you're basically doubling what hard is, right? That's for most people, that's a pretty big bite of the apple. I think from a looking around and seeing what other people, the cool kids are doing socially, you may be encouraged to do more. But to your point, every time I've opted into a bigger race than like bigger than my britches, I don't even know what the right expression is. It's always been bad. Like I just suffer more. And there's some level of, I think part of what you did, which was really smart, was you set yourself up for success because you dabbled in it and then grew that. Whereas if you just go big, let's say you just set a 200, you go do it, you suffer through it, whether or not you even make the cutoff, but you had a miserable time. Your body is wrecked. But there's really no the only lesson you've learned is just don't sign up for dumb stuff. Like it's like something you want to get back and do again, right? That's just not the thing. So I think if this is for the folks listening at home, if this is something you really are interested in, you want to go out into the great outdoors and explore, oh, I don't know, the 95% of the world that has not been like overdeveloped. Do it the right way. Be intentional about it. Use your fitness, structure it so you can be great, like Rob's doing that sort of end of season build up, I think, which is really smart. We've also had people do destination stuff as well as a group. So we've had a bunch of you and your friends started that rim to rim adventure piece as well. That seems to me to be like another great hack to get people into the ultra space, right? Instead of just like signing up for an event, which brings all sorts of other pieces to it, like showing up and doing something cool with your friends is I don't know, it seems like a cheat code as well.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that was definitely fun. We started a few years back, I think during COVID. I put out, hey, I was thinking about doing rim to rims. Do you want to join? And we ended
Mm-hmm.
up with a group of maybe a dozen folks, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them had never done an ultra distance
Yeah.
before. So it takes that pressure off that this is a
Yeah.
race. Like
Mm-hmm.
no one's gonna ask you at the end of double crossing the Grand Canyon, what was your time? And
Exactly.
no one cares.
What place were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you win your age group? No one cares about that when you're just out on one of those adventures because you're doing something amazing. So that's a good kind of entree. And also, that was kind of a mixed group where you had more experienced ultra runners. Guy had done it before, so I shared. Here was my gear list,
Yeah.
and it was funny. Everyone showed up and they're like decked out in all my gear. Like, all right, you guys listen.
Twins. Yeah,
Yeah,
they all showed up to the costume party with the right
had the
costume on.
same running vest, the same poles, everything.
Oh my god, that's so funny. That's to me. I remember when talking with Tim about this and trying to figure out how we grow some of the resources for Ultra inside the team. He was like, step one is to go crew for someone, like just go see it, just to see it from an observer's eye. And I feel like that sort of social style event as well, like putting down a challenge with your friends or connecting with others to be like, hey, let's just go do something cool. To your point, it takes all the pressure off. It makes it a ton of fun. It's a space where you can ask lots of questions. Whereas if I sign up for some sort of idiot 100, I'm not going to go into the sign up page and copy email addresses and be like, "Hey, Joe, Jane, you don't know me, but could you share some advice for me?" I don't know, you miss out on all of that piece as well, you
Yeah, it's
know?
a good way. If you do go that route of doing 100, I definitely
Hmm.
recommend find a mentor, find someone else who's done it. For me, that was
Hmm.
I was doing my first 100s. I knew some ultra runners in Utah, and
Okay.
said, "All right, what do you guys do?" And they're part of the old school ultra runners,
Okay.
and so it was helpful to hear their advice. But yeah, I definitely recommend if you're
Hmm.
interested, find if you're an EN, there are lots of us in there. You could say, "Hey, I
Yeah.
want an ultra," and most of us are happy to talk about this, talk your ear off
Right.
about it. Um,
Yeah.
so usually I think it's a good community where people
Hmm.
are willing to help you out. One of the things I always say about 200s is I've never met an asshole in a 200. Never, not once. Uh,
Hmm.
I can't say that about most other races.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
remember being in triathlons and you have other competitors taunt you and things
Hmm.
like that. Like smack talk just doesn't happen in the longer distance ultras because if you're if you come upon a runner and they're in distress, you don't just walk by them, you stop, say, "What can I do to help?"
It's so funny. I think about that a lot as well. I think about that with work, right? So when I meet someone who's a fellow business owner like me, if you talk to someone who's in a startup or whatever, at the beginning of their journey, they'll be like, "We've got the best team. We're super smart, great funding. We're executing like legends, whatever." If you talk to someone who's been running a business for 20 years, they're like, "We've been so lucky. We just managed to find our way." It's the, you come to a realization later on your priorities change, and there's a much greater alignment with understanding of the universe and being yourself and not being tied into performative things or making up a story as a narrative for what you're doing and all of that. And I agree with you. I see that stuff. And that's one of the biggest things people talk about from the ultra side is that the events are just they're just different. Like it's like the family that you like that you hadn't actually met yet, but you get to meet them here.
Yeah, it's a really cool community. It's pretty laid back. The point end of the field is still pretty competitive.
Sure.
Uh, Beyond that, even the race leader, if they came upon you and you were laying on the ground, they would stop and help you. Uh,
Right.
where the road marathon, they would just jump over you and yell at you for being in their way. I don't know.
Fall down on the side, you idiot. Who falls down in the middle of the road? Coming through. I could
Yeah, so
totally
I think
see that.
it's definitely like a cool community. Getting together with other people for long runs, especially when you have a 5 hour run. Going out and
Mm,
doing that by yourself,
yeah.
that can get a little boring. So it's good to make
Mm,
friends and you find other people who are into the same thing that you're into. Like I have a group of us that have done 200s.
mhm.
Special kind of insanity. Like we get each other, we understand
Mm,
each other's mental illness. It's like great to go and train with those guys. So some of the guys in EN, like Peter
right.
Noy and Tim Kronk, uh,
Mhm.
and other folks have met along the way. Yeah, yeah, it's a great way to build like just friends that you get to do
Mhm.
something crazy, and the bonding that you go through doing a 200-mile event.
Mhm.
It's similar to like doing an Ironman, except maybe on steroids. 'Cause you're gonna
Yeah.
go through all the highs and lows of an Ironman is going to be like a sine wave. You're going to hit a high and then a low and a high. 2 miles is like you compressed a whole lifetime of highs and lows
Mm.
into one race.
Oh my god. I gotta believe I don't even know if the average endurance racer has the available bandwidth. Like, my phone would fill up if I had a 5 a 5-day event, you know what I mean? I think I would just be reduced to either I'd be overwhelmed and, like, I would just stop saving things after a day and a half and would just be overwhelmed, or I wonder for you, do you ever just wake up and feel like you're in a run? You're like, "Oh my god, I'm on day 4. I've gotta get to the finish." The other people are stressed about work. Are you, like, ultra stressed?
Definitely after a 200, I argue it actually gives you mild PTSD. So after a 200, I'll have for a couple of weeks I'll dream that I'm still out there running, and I wake up and I go, "Oh, thank God, the race is over."
Mhm,
Definitely,
mhm,
and I've had that in the race where you wake up, like at San Diego 200. I remember I was sleeping in this RV for 20 minutes, and I woke up in an
mhm.
actual bed because usually you're sleeping like in the dirt, the side of the trail. So you wake up
Right.
in the dirt, you know what you're doing. So I wake up in this bed and I look around and I'm like, "What am I doing?" And then I was like,
Mm,
"Oh shit, I'm running a 200. Why am I doing this to myself?" But then I got up and just
mm.
70 more miles to go, went out and did it.
Wow, unbelievable. That's so crazy. I just love it. Before we go, I do wanna I appreciate you sharing some of those pieces of advice, but, so 2 things. One is, what's left on your calendar for this year? Because I think that's always, like, something for people to munch on, and then I wanna talk about your fundraising things as well.
Sure. And this year, so far, it's been a pretty busy year racing already. Talked about doing the marathon, did Canyons 100 in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, doing San Diego 100. And so Peter Noyes, Francis Picard's coming down to run that,
Awesome.
alumni, and some other friends from that 200 community coming out to
Mhm,
crew and support. And then have the Angeles Crest 100 in July, which is one of the old school original 100
mhm,
races. There's kind of five that are considered the old school
mhm.
original. This is one of them. So it's, yeah, a
Right.
classic race through the
Mhm.
Angeles Mountains near Los Angeles. And then
Right.
capstone for the year is an epic, terrifying race called Tour de Giants or the Tour of Giants. It's over 200 miles through the Italian Alps with somewhere between 80,000 and 100,000 feet of vertical.
God.
So somewhere around three Everests of vertical in one race. And
Oh my
it's
god.
considered probably rightly one of the hardest races in the world. So just that amount of vertical is hard to conceptualize.
Mm.
Most will have maybe half of that.
Wow.
Moab was, I think it was about 30,000 feet, or basically one Everest. Um,
Okay.
so at least double that that vertical. So you're basically
Wow.
so a lot of the climbs are almost like from sea level up to 10,000 feet and then back down,
Mhm.
and then do that
Wow.
over and over again. So I'm
Wow.
excited about that. It's definitely like one of my bucket list races,
Okay.
but it's one of the races that kind of terrifies me. It's
Mm.
really it's hard for even me to conceptualize that
Oh my
amount of
god.
because I compare it to other races I've done where I'm like, that was a lot of vertical. I'm like, it would have been more vertical per mile than that race that I thought was a lot.
So hard. Oh
Yeah.
my god. All about the vert. That's so crazy. We'll be following along for sure. I love how you give us the updates so we can watch your little dot go through it all. Yeah, totally. One of these days you gotta invent like the ultra running tracking site where the dot like changes color. Like when Gabe is in suffer mode, the dot turns red. When green is like happy mode. So we could be like, how's the dot doing out there?
That's a
Um,
good idea. That's a good idea. They should have like a mood ring or something, a little button you
totally,
can
totally feel like this is the brutal.
I'm
Totally.
dying.
Nice. All right, awesome. And then last but not least, you've been raising money for Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, right? JDRF for years.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So my oldest daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes back in
mhm,
2019. And so I figured, hey, if me doing stupid stuff can help find a cure
mhm,
for type 1 diabetes, then I'm all for that. Started with Moab in 2019, doing a fundraiser, and I set a pretty modest goal. I think I put up the fundraiser of like, all right, yeah, I'll raise like $2,000, and quickly blew through that. We were talking about before the podcast. Well, support you doing stupid things, and then so every
right.
year did a different fundraiser. Like
Mhm,
in 2000, when 2020 when COVID hit and all the races
mhm,
were canceled, I did a fundraiser for this race called Badwater Salton Sea, and the race was canceled. So I ended up running 100 miles on the treadmill as the fundraiser.
oh my
And
god.
I think that one raised something like $6,000 because once I said, all right, the race is canceled, but I set the goal at 5,000. I said, if we hit 5,000, I'll just go
Mhm,
ahead and run 100 miles on the treadmill because the race is 83 miles. I was originally going to do
okay,
the race on the treadmill. And as soon as
right.
I posted that, it went instantly blew through the target. And I was like, all right, people,
Totally,
if they want to see me run 100 miles on the
totally.
yeah, you can't quit. So I've continued doing that. Like last
Love it.
year, San Diego 200.
Mhm,
2021 was when I did Badwater. That was a
okay,
fundraiser for JDRF. And
mhm,
so probably this year I'll do it for Tour de France. So usually about
love
2
it.
weeks for the race. I'll put up the fundraiser link.
Okay,
You
we'll
want to
be
do
looking for it.
really?
Awesome. I'll when you get it to me, I'll come back here. I'll update. We'll do the podcast, but I'll come back and update the description and use social media to amplify it as well. Put it out to the team and commit to also funding myself for once, so I can be part of the madness. Who knows? Maybe we can convince you to do something ridiculous. Although I think just doing that race itself is totally ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not
So
sure. I'm not sure what's next after that.
I don't know.
Top that.
I was going to say, if anyone's going to find it, it's you. But I'm not sure the rest of us really want to know just yet. Let us catch up. We got to do a 50K first before we hear more.
Yeah, the next level are very exotic races, like doing the Iditarod on foot, dragging a sled. Right now, that sounds horrible, but give it a year or two, maybe.
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
Awesome. Very cool. Hey, Gabe, listen, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
yeah, great
Um,
catching up.
yeah, same. And yeah, I'll let you know when this goes live. Thanks for sending over the bio. I'll use all that stuff. And can't wait to hear about your race with Peter and Francis and see the pictures too. You guys bring the
Yeah,
fun. So
next week you'll see the
awesome.
excitement.
Give everyone my kudos, if you will.
All right, we'll do.
All right, Gabe, you take care. I'll see you.
All right, take care.
Okay,
Bye.
bye bye.